Hello, you're listening to the K-12 Tech Podcast, bringing you insights into the world of education technology. Stay tuned as we discuss the past, the present, and most importantly, the future of technology in our schools.
All right, thanks everybody for joining us for this week's K-12 Tech Podcast. I have Mark Pinkerton on again. I'm not going to have him do another introduction of himself because you should have listened to the last one so you can have it. So go back and listen to that. But this podcast is going to be a little bit different. We're going to do a little bit of kind of what happened in this situation where his school had made a purchase of Chromebooks like everybody else did. You know, they followed everything by the book. And guess what? School year comes up and there are no Chromebooks. So this is going to be kind of the story of that. I'm going to get a little bit into the economics of what happened on the production side of it. And then just kind of where we are today and how we've adapted through that. So, Mark, thanks for joining me again. I'm looking forward to it. Why don't you start me out? RFP, when did you officially make your order of Chromebooks?
So we would have done our RFP back in like February, March, picked a vendor late April. I don't know the exact day that my business office submitted the order, but it would have been early May of 2020.
Yeah.
Which should have been in plenty of time to get devices before school started.
Yeah, so RFP February, previous to everything shutting down. COVID was just kind of hitting the news. Not really sure how big it was going to be. You pick a vendor, obviously, in April, follow all the protocol. You put your order in May. Now, was there any communication from your vendor? Also, it wasn't us on this one, just want to say. Was there any communication from your vendor like you might not get your Chromebooks in time? Or was it like, no, hey, you're going to be good. It might be later on in the summer. What was that communication like?
We had a feeling that things might be delayed because of COVID-19 and all of the different things we were hearing about, factories being shut down. So we had a communication back and forth with the vendor, and then ultimately it was not so much the vendor, but the Chromebook manufacturer, which was Lenovo.
Yeah.
And so we had some communication back and forth, but we were still confident that we were going to get them. You know, it might not be 2 weeks before school started, but at least we could get them that week or so school started, and we could start handing out devices as soon as we could get them out of the box. Which did not end up.
No. So just kind of like outlining, most people who are going to be listening to this are in the education realm, probably in technology, so you kind of understand. So basically, with COVID hit, China shut down. Unfortunately, every single Chromebook that exists is produced, Shenzhen or China, somewhere around there. They shut down, so production already, even January through March, was delayed. But they thought they were going to be able to catch up. But there was kind of some unique things happening as well. So with COVID, schools are now going fully virtual for the first time. So schools that weren't one-to-one are scrambling, buying everything possible on the market. So not only do you have production shut down for a couple of months, and I don't think they were even up to full production from what they said until April. We talked quite a bit with our vendors over there. April, May. So you've got maybe 50% over that time of production on top of demand doubling at the exact same time. So schools that weren't planning are going to Best Buy. They're going to all of these, buying up every single Chromebook that's on the market. And then this is kind of where we're stuck in language. And I'm not going to get into specific because of, just some knowledge I'm not 100% sure on. But from what I understand, a massive, massive amount of devices were on a boat, probably your devices, were on boats coming to the United States to be collected, and they were in customs, I believe, and they were turned away. And I've heard different numbers, but I heard it could be close to 1 million devices turned away and sent back and were not allowed to be sold in the United States. There's some speculation on exactly why that was. I'm not going to get into that. So you take that. So the things that were produced, the 3 months that were produced, got turned away, double the demand, take away the production. You've got a nightmare. So at that point, like we had worked with you on the buyback side, and we were waiting kind of until it was like, no, you're getting your devices. You'll have them by the end of June. So we're like, all right, go ahead. We grabbed them. We were processing them. They were gone. And you said, you came to me, you're like, hey, Zach, we're not getting our devices. So kind of walk me through the day you get the call. The day you find out you're not getting your devices before the beginning of school.
Yeah, so it was a weird day because I was scrambling, getting stuff ready for schools anyways. And I have to go back. I was trying to find, how much before school was that we found out. But I had a couple emails from the vendor we bought from, and then looped in, and I got to my phone, and I see, this email from the vendor. I see an email from Lenovo. I'm thinking, man, why is Lenovo reaching out? What's going on? And before I can even do anything, my superintendent calls me. He's like, I just got off the phone with the vendor and with Lenovo, and we're not going to have our devices until maybe September or October. I'm like, man, what? Like, it's like I left my office 2 hours ago, and I go do something, and I get out to my car because there's no cell phone signal inside this building, so I wasn't getting a phone call, and find out that we have no devices. So the cool part of this story, one of the cool parts of the story is my superintendent, Brett Garrett, is, he kind of knows my personality, and that we always like to have things done on time or ahead of time. We're always prepared. We do whatever we can to put the best foot forward for our students, for our staff. And he's like, this is an opportunity to lead. He's like, this isn't a disaster. He's like, he listed, here's what a disaster is. Made sure I knew what a disaster was when it dealt with like humans and human life. He's like, this is not one of those times. It's an opportunity to lead and to grow, and we're going to figure it out. So that was the day I found out. I don't know if you want more specifics on Lenovo's side, but I guess my response from that point was, I'm in a little bit of a freak out mode, right? Because it's like we're starting school in less than 2 weeks. Our teachers and students have had devices for 8 years in a row now. Like, I can't imagine coming back to school, and we just ended COVID. No one knows what school's going to start like. Are we going to be in for 4 days and then we're virtual, or are we going to go in and be half schedule? So for those of you who might be in a different situation than us, we've actually been on site since day one. Like, we've never had any sort of a shutdown or half days or partial schedules. We've had some snowy learning days, but not a true shutdown. So, but going into that, we didn't know. We didn't know what, were we going to make it till October 1st and then school shut down again? We didn't know. So the not having the device was.
Yeah, and just so people understand, like, scarcity on the level that it was, our largest district that we cover, they needed to buy 8,500 devices. And the only person that had them was Staples. So if Staples is selling directly to schools, that there's nothing on the market. And I'm relatively confident that they may have gotten the last couple of thousand devices that were even available in the United States at that point. So, I remember, Mark, you calling me, and I was more nervous, I think, maybe than you were, because I feel horrible. We don't have devices to support you. I'm reaching out to every single one of my vendors to see, and it's hard when it's like, hey, I have to buy used devices to get me devices until I get my other one. So it's like there's grant money out there. You don't know when you're going to get it. You don't have the budget, all these things. And I think what happened next was probably one of my favorite stories of the year. So can you talk through just kind of how the education community came together and like helped you guys out in this time of need?
Yeah, so I started just picking up the phone, and even that day I'm in the driveway at my house, and I'm calling the IT director at Oak Hill, and I'm calling the IT who actually used to be a technician of ours, Brandon Hoff, from over at Southern Wells, and I'm just saying, tell me you guys have devices on your shelf that you haven't sold. So I knew both of those schools who had bought some new devices, and we just started reaching out. And Brandon and Southern Wells had a decent amount of devices. I can't remember the exact number we had from them, but 500 or 600 devices, which was going to get us part of the way there. We knew that we had some iPads we were going to order, so we thought about ordering some iPads. And so I sort of built this whole long list of things, and this must have been a Friday. The following Monday, we get back together, and we have a meeting with all of our admin team and superintendent, and I just give them this like long list of like, here's all the things that we could possibly do. We can try to buy MacBook Airs, we can try to buy this or that. And I think just me saying, hey, look, I've called all these people and asked, can they help us out? Can we get devices? I called you guys. I called Mike Sumter because he had his hands in some schools.
Yeah.
And just anywhere I could. And then our superintendent, I think, just took that lead, Brett, and he kind of emailed out some superintendent contacts and said, hey, this is where we're at. Some people emailed him, including me, and said, we're in the same boat. Like, if you find devices, let us know because we need some devices. And he had a contact at a school district up north, which actually I think you guys work with them as well.
Yeah.
And they had not yet sold their old devices, but had new ones in hand, and actually sold us their devices. Actually, I think that particular corporation just said when we're done, get them. They were going to sell back to you guys, and so what they said was just when you're done with them, turn them over, and we'll collect whatever's left to collect at that time. So we ended up getting the 1,500 devices that we needed within a matter of a week and a half.
Yeah.
Thinking we had no device, we now had devices, and we worked some long hours that a couple of days before school started in that weekend. But I think by Tuesday or Wednesday, like second or third day of school, every kid in our district had a device in their hands, and it wasn't what we had intended, but they all worked. And again, at that time, we thought this was like, we're going to do this till October. Then October came, and they're like, no, it's probably going to be end of November. We'll have them by November. So then it's late November, we're not hearing anything, and it's like, well, it might be first of the year. Then it's December, and it's like, well, it might be March. So at this point, I just sent the email to our whole staff group, because we've talked about it, but I just said, just in case anyone is still questioning, even if we got devices between now and the end of the school year, logistically, we can't collect and distribute, and we've got these devices from now until the end of the year, which I think most people are in that assumption. But I did have one teacher in the email that said, you know what, it's fine, they work, the kids can do what they need to do. We're just so glad that we have a device to use. So.
You know what, I think one thing, a lot of terrible things have come out of COVID, but one thing I have experienced so much of is I think people have been forced just to give grace on things. It kind of forces you to be like, life isn't perfect and it's out of control. And people are like, you know what? I understand. And with like what you guys went through, I remember we were with the school that you got a majority of your devices from, and I was talking with them. We were like, hey, is it okay if we send these devices? I'm like, absolutely. Like what good is it for me to get these devices if it's going to help a school go on through a school year? And it was kind of already worked out because when you guys were done with them, we were just going to pick them up anyway. But that's kind of like the relationship aspect of everybody pulling together and help. And I loved that story because it was kind of fast. Like when you think about by the time you find out you're not going to get them a couple weeks before school starts to now, it's like, oh, a couple weeks later, you have all the devices you need. Sure, they're in pretty rough shape. But, you had everything you needed to launch for that school year. And I loved the story because I think a lot of people there, I know schools that have no device. They just don't have devices. They've got 5 or 6 year old Chromebooks that are they're not even fast enough. And I did have a specific question for you because I actually don't know the answer to this. Did Google do anything special with Google Console, or did they force you guys to buy additional licenses?
So we had already bought licenses because we were under the impression that the cost was going to go up.
Yep.
That was pre-COVID. And so cost was going to go up. I think March 31st was the cutoff.
Yep.
Or some date in there. And then Google extended that. So we had already bought 1,600 licenses. So we didn't have to worry about that. Our concern was, especially when we thought that we were only doing this till October, was, hey, look, we're going to spend, like, not only did we have to buy devices, from the one school, but the other school, like I said, it just let us use them, basically. We contacted the Google rep, and we tried to work with them and the vendor, and actually Lenovo got involved as well, because, as you know, there's not, like, big money to be made on Chromebook sales from a reseller standpoint.
Yeah.
So it's not like we could get some crazy discount, but someone talked to someone at Google and convinced them that whenever we get our new devices in, that they will somehow do a same model replacement or some other piece will work so that we don't have to buy those licenses again.
That's awesome. And that was my main concern was, hey, I'm going to use these Google licenses for 6 months. And for people who don't know, Google licenses right now are right about $25 a license, somewhere around there. And I think Google did announce they're raising their prices again on those. But I appreciate that. I mean, really, ultimately, how much does it cost Google?
Right. Well, I mean, the point was we had already had licenses. I mean, it's not like we were going anywhere. We had already bought them 4 years prior, and we had them here. The devices that we had, someone had paid for a license on them, so it's not like they were not licensed in that regard. So
Yeah.
The other part of it, and is you guys, is K-12, right? So I mean, we talked a little bit about this in the last one, but building that partnership, and so we had, like, you guys sold us a warranty on a Lenovo 300E.
Yeah.
Not the old 3100s and 3100 touchers. There's
Yeah.
even the model. I don't know what model even have.
Yeah, there's like two different ones, I think.
But anyways, like you guys sold us that, and I'm sure that there are plenty of companies who would have had to been like, well, you don't have the device that we sold you a warranty on, so you're out of luck, which was not what K-12 did. I mean, you guys have supported us from day one. In fact, you've probably done more lifting this year because we didn't, with our repair class, we didn't send devices out the door.
Yeah.
And I think we're on our third round of sending devices to you because we just cannot keep up because the devices are older. And so knowing that, when I called you that one day and devices were tough for you to get to, the one thing I remember from that call was knowing that whoever we get devices from, that you guys were there to support us regardless. It didn't matter what the device was. You guys had a contract with us to support devices, regardless of what that looked like. So
yeah, I appreciate that. Like, working with schools for me has always been a long game. A long game, not a game, but like long-term relationships and building that, and doing to others you want to have them do to you. And it's like, I can't just leave them hanging. I got to take care of that. And I appreciate that shout out with that. And going back to like your devices too. People are like, well, you're going to get them in March. It doesn't matter. Basically, if you don't have them by the beginning of this year, there isn't enough time to roll them out and do that. It's just not even worth it. You might as well wait, extend out your warranty with Lenovo another year. That way they're kind of covered in that realm, and at least you'll be on time for next school year, hopefully.
we hope.
Yeah, hope. One thing I do want to say for everybody who's listening is kind of on the cuff of what they're doing. This production and demand problem is going to be a problem again. So if you are on a refresh cycle, everyone's like, oh, the market's getting caught up. Like, no, like the market is just getting caught up from 10 months ago. And I anticipate there's going to be another pretty large shortage again. So the issue is, I would say maybe 20% of the Chromebooks that were put into circulation with schools were devices that were 4 or 5 years old already. I mean, the used Chromebook market, we still use Chromebooks. We were sold out. There was nothing in existence, which tells me that schools were buying up whatever they could, and which means is they're in their 4th or 5th year. Chromebooks are great devices. That's pushing it. Batteries aren't making it. Motherboards are starting to fail. So those schools, that 20% that backfilled the market, they're going to have to replace those. And that's just another huge demand in the market. They're not quite there. Haven't really heard about production. We're out there. So anybody who's holding off and like, hey, we'll get to it. We'll make our order. Get them ordered now and make sure that you're in the front of the line. So
well, yeah, because you look at, we ordered in May of 2020. I mean, we're going to be almost a full 12 months out, and I know that last time we had a call with Lenovo, there were still people who had ordered in March who hadn't been fulfilled. So we actually meet with them next week, and I'm just hoping that they tell me someone in the line has gotten devices delivered.
I really think this is like a great story of like community and schools coming together and scrambling. And I love your ability to adapt and, kind of what Brett Garrett said, like, this is an opportunity for leadership, not a disaster. And having that attitude throughout this is what I think is so important. And, for anybody listening, when like life is going to throw you stuff like COVID has kind of showed us, you can be pretty resilient and reach out to people in your community and your other schools. I think sometimes there's that pride if I'm reaching out, it makes it look like I'm not on top of my stuff. But ultimately, reaching out and building a good network is what's going to allow your school to be better and what you can learn from people on. So, Mark, I really appreciate your time today and, your expertise and your professionalism in that. Appreciate it.
Sounds great. Thanks, Zach.